Hello and welcome to the Rogue Monkey podcast and episode 80. My name is Kevin Pickard and I host a show that shares stories with the aim of inspiring you to challenge yourself. This is the finale to season 10 and I am really excited to share today's conversation with you. Across the last 7 episodes, we've spoken to some incredible people. Natalie Bamford kicked off our season sharing her story as a founder and entrepreneur. We then spoke to Premier League official Dan Robertson about his journey from being a volunteer to being a linesman at a full Wembley stadium. Next up, we explored the life journey of a former SAS officer and Everest conqueror, Krishna Thapa. Episode 76, we explored overcoming adversity with air race pilot and former Red Arrow Ben Murphy. We then delved into the performing arts space with actress Lauren Osborne and then onto the broadcasting world with Simon Mundy. Last week we spoke to Charlotte Pirrie exploring her freelance marketing journey, and that brings us up nicely to today. Our guest for our 80th episode is Colin Hill, founder of the Great North Swim, London 2012 marathon swim organiser and all-round open water swimming legend. We explore everything open water, from the mental health benefits to the massive growth in people taking up cold water swimming over the last few years. It's a fitting finale to our 10th season, as our first episode was with a passionate swimming coach, and now for our 80th show we're at it again. So let's get into this week's conversation and episode 80 of the Rogue Monkey podcast. Colin Hill and Ullswater Swim Place, taking the plunge into the world of open water swimming. Hello, Colin, and welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Really good, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really honoured to be here.
Really excited to have you as part of, I guess, what's been quite a long aquatic journey for me, but aquatic seems to be your whole life, and I'm sure we'll delve into that in a bit. But do you want to give our listeners and viewers just, I guess, a quick introduction as to who you are and a bit of your headline journey?
Yeah, so my name is Colin Hill. Currently, I own a company called Ullswater Swim Place. So I'm based in the Lake District, and behind me is my endless pool. And so I do coaching and guiding from the lakes. But people might know me from 2 different sort of realms with regards to aquatics. One is my sort of event experience. So the Great North Swim, which a lot of people have heard of, I came up with the concepts for that, and I set that up. The Great North Swim, I moved on to the Olympics. So I was the technical operations manager for London 2012 for the marathon swimming events. So really proud to be involved with that one. You know, I've worked for FINA for several years as their open water swimming consultants. So a lot of the open water swimming races you might have seen on social media, I was the guy at the end capturing the footage of the finish and talking to the elites and chatting to them, which has been really fun. I was the technical operations manager for the European Championships in Glasgow. So I've done a lot of event work. I also had a company called Chill Swim, where we used to have mass participation swims down the length of the lake. So lots and lots of stuff like that. And also my own swimming. I've been a passionate swimmer. Like a lot of people, I grew up as a sort of competitive swimmer, but then I went overseas for quite a long time and I ended up in New Zealand, where I did a lot of racing over there. So a lot of multi-sport racing. So it's like a triathlon with kayaking. So I did a lot of sea swimming over there. Some really great masters clubs to swim with. Moved back to this country and just kept swimming going, really. And did the English Channel as a solo swim. Done lots of long distance swim races. And I've got a 24-kilometer race next month over in Finland. So yeah, so my background has really been I've been working full time in open water swimming since about 2008. And I've been sort of open water swimming for a long time before that. So just goes to show, if you stick at something long enough and become into fashion, which open water swimming certainly has.
It most certainly has. And I guess, yeah, we'll dive into so many different aspects of that. Obviously, the Olympics drew a huge amount of attention to it. We were talking beforehand about the pandemic having a massive shift in the volume of people having a go at it. But what's your earliest memories of swimming? Because when you talk to people who come from that competitive swimming background, not many of them say, I was really keen to go and jump in that lake. So what was that transition and early experience like for you?
Yeah, so I mean, my early memories of swimming is, you know, in the swimming pool, and I just went, and I never really thought about it. I used to go every weekend to the galas, and it was just something that we just did. And then I really I started to really enjoy the outdoors. I started to do a lot of kayaking, whitewater kayaking, and that really got me sort of interested in sort of the lakes and rivers around me. And then the first race I was involved with was Kielder Water. It was a short race in Kielder Water, organised by the British Long Distance Swim Association. I must have been about 13, 14 for that one. But then, so it was when I went overseas to New Zealand where I really got that passion, that bug for open water swimming full time. But swimming is just something that I've always enjoyed and always done competitively. I've just enjoyed training, really, like a lot of people. I really enjoy being in the pool or the open water and just, very much hedonistic kind of sport, which I've enjoyed.
And I'd imagine right now it's not the worst place to have to go and swim around. Anyone who's familiar with the lakes and has been up there, it's very easy on the eye. And I think for people who haven't, definitely get up the M6 as quickly as possible and come and give you guys a visit.
Yeah, well, I chose to be in the Lake District because I honestly think it's the best place in the world for open water swimming. We've got the sort of the long lakes like Windermere, Coniston, Ullswater, Derwentwater, and then there's 198 small mountain tarns around the Lake District. And the beauty of the lakes is that it's open access. Unfortunately, a lot of bodies of water down south are privately owned. If you want to go open water swimming somewhere in a lake, often you have to, sign up. Where in the Lake District, you can just go swimming. You've got to use your common sense. So people have to sort of, be aware of a few things if you're swimming in lakes where there's boats and things like that. But generally, you can just go exploring. It's an amazing place to live. And I'm lucky enough to live on the shores of Ullswater. So my commute to work today was a paddleboard across the lake, which isn't the worst commute in the world. And spend the morning, swimming and guiding and coaching.
Well, you talk about exploration there, and I think, delving into your story a bit and the global exploration you seem to have had. Again, what was the kind of starter for that, and how did it turn into, I guess, quite a few years of overseas versus perhaps a little summer abroad?
Yeah, when I finished university, again, I was at university, I was sort of swimming. So I was a competitive swimmer there. So I got back into it again after sort of a bit of a lapse. I was back into being a competitive swimmer and also kayaking. And then, I got offered a job in Nepal as a whitewater rafting guide, which was sort of, that was it. I was off straight away. So I spent a few years in Nepal doing whitewater rafting, where we're going down these rivers for 10 days, sort of self-support, which was just crazy. And I just love being, involved in the water and, really passionate about that. And then from New Zealand, I went across to Austria, did some whitewater rafting over in Austria. Austria's got some amazing pools as well. So where I lived, there was an open air 50-meter pool. So it was great to sort of keep my swimming going over there. And then, as I said, it was the transition across to New Zealand. And New Zealand's such a great place to be visited. It's, there's so many people are active over there. And being a sports person isn't something unusual. It's like something that everybody just does. And yeah, the clubs are really welcoming. There was so many races. There was regular sort of weekly swim run events. And there was hundreds of people would go to them and compete, and you just did it. Every Wednesday and Friday night, I had these swim run races going on, racing with the Masters Club. And it gave me a different sort of view on what competitive swimming can be like. It wasn't going to the galas of the weekends and spending all day waiting for your race. It was really fun events over there. They have lots of spot prizes where you just get your number pulled out of a hat and you can go away with a great prize. And it was really about the sort of the fun, the competitive element was there, but also the participation element was really important. And when I came back to the UK after that, that's what I kind of realized was sort of missing with a lot of the open water swim events. The British Long Distance Swim Association has done an amazing job of keeping long distance swimming going. They've been the stalwarts, that and the Channel Swimming Association, they've been keeping open water swimming going, but that sort of just easy access and being able just to enter an event and take part in it, that just wasn't here. So that was something I was really proud to be involved with, bringing to the UK.
Well, we'll delve into how that kind of evolved from conceptual ideas perhaps to what it's become now. But I mean, I just want to pick up on a point you mentioned there around the masters aspect and the fun aspect, because, and it's quite a pertinent discussion for me, because I came out of the sport for quite a few years, came back in as what they call a senior, so 18 to 24, lost the love of it in the mid-teens, and then ended up going back into it full-time in my mid-20s, and still going now and will continue for the rest of my life. But I think when you go to, especially the international masters events, like I remember coming back from the 2017 Worlds, I think it was, and this podcast, the first episode of it was with somebody that I met at that World Championships, and we were just chatting in the bar.
Yeah.
And you go to a competition and there would be warm-up pool, warm down pool, competition pool, and bar, and that would be the event map. And you'd be like, I can see how the social is, there'd be bands playing and there'd be live music, and you just it's a much more of a cultural thing as opposed to a specific performance outcome, and very clinical, which I think, due to, I guess, the numbers and the nature of how age group sport is set up in this country, it can feel quite clinical. Whereas you touched on that, and I really want to unpick that a bit. So for you, having seen that, what were the different aspects that you thought, I really want to bring that back to the UK, but also, especially on the scale that it now is, to get as many people involved in possible? What did that journey look like from like concept to where it is now?
I think one of the first things I realized was ease of access, just being able to enter an event easily. As you know, if you want to enter a Masters event, you've got to be part of a club. It's not easy to do. You've got to kind of know your way around it. It's not just a case of going onto a website and just clicking, I want to do this race. You've got to be affiliated and things like that. And, again, in New Zealand, I was there, gosh, it was sort of 95 to 99, I think I spent over there. And you can just enter these races. It's just so easy to do. And that's one of the things I realized when I came back. And I was doing the British Long Distance Swim Association races, and I had to send off my check. And I had to be in a certain time before the race, or got returned to you. I had to have the name of the person who was going to be my support person in the boats when I entered, which you don't always know. And it was just it was just very structured and organized here, and it was aimed at a certain group and demographic. It wasn't sort of just for anybody. There's no wetsuits allowed. It was very strict on the rules. So I think it's just, being able to just enter a race. A triathlon obviously got onto that very quickly. And I think triathlon was very accessible sport, where swimming very much, because swimming has been established for much longer, it's very set in how it does things. And I think it takes, another sport to come along and kind of say, they can just get all these people who are just enthusiastic, but they're not, they're not great competitors. They just want to come and race. And I think that's what was personally, that's what the bridge which was missing in swimming for quite a while, was just getting those masses, getting people who just want to have a go, not necessarily sort of at the top of their game.
That's a really interesting point. I think, though, that a lot of sports, all sports seem to miss out on, and you can see the sports that have evolved to kind of pick up on that. So take five-a-side football as an example. One of the biggest barriers to entry was trying to get 11 people together organised on a Sunday. And you had to then have a referee and a linesman and all these sorts of things. Whereas actually to go, need a team of 5 of us that are going to turn up round the corner on a Wednesday night, and another team will turn up. They'll figure that bit out. No referee. Everyone pays a couple of quid and off you go. And the 5-a-side game is almost overtaken the 11-a-side game in terms of participation. And that's where, certainly in the swimming community, I talk to a lot of people and think open water swimming is ballooning, but it's certainly showing no signs of slowing down, almost the other way around. It's had a kickstart from the pandemic, but it's definitely not going anywhere. It's only going to get better, if you like.
Yeah. And I think master swimming is changing now. I remember a couple of clubs. I remember Carlisle Aquatics and Penrith. And Penrith Club is certainly welcoming a lot of people who have discovered swimming through open water, and they kind of want to get a bit better. And so they've realized that there's people who want to come and train and have a coach and things. So I think hopefully the open water swimming is going to, benefit the swimming clubs if the swimming clubs are open to that and, want that to happen. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I saw the pickup in open water swimming in this country probably, for me, 2006 is when David Walliams swam the channel. And that was actually quite a big thing. Having this sort of, this top comedian swimming the English Channel, I think it certainly made people realize, gosh, that's still going on and people are still doing that. And, it's actually something you can achieve. 2008 was when, I think it was 2007, 2008, Kate Roos set up the Outdoor Swimming Society. That was a big step because that was not competitive. It was just about people who want to swim in pools and lakes and rivers and just have a nice time. So the Outdoor Swimming Society was just kind of, real organic group which set up through social media, and they just started to get people who were interested. And Kate was doing a lot of writing in The Guardian and Independent about swimming outdoors, and that started something in the zeitgeist. The Great North Swim, which I set up, that was 2008, and that was the first real mass participation open water event where we had thousands of people coming along who didn't have to be affiliated with a club or anything like that. They could just come along and swim. And then from then we had Beijing as well. We had our amazing marathon swimmers in Beijing come back with 3 medals. And I actually had Cassie Patton in my pool today. So yeah, so I've got Cassie's up here. So, it's great to see her here. So I think that changed people's perceptions about long distance swimming and what 10K swimming can be like. And then it just started to grow and grow. There was more events. There's more people writing about wild swimming. And it was actually very little to do with the federation. So, Swim England's ASA, they really, triathlon as well. Triathlon for a long time was sort of promoting open water swimming, but then all this other stuff just came along. And all those people used to swim in the pools in the morning, doing head-up breaststroke, having a chat. Now they're in the open water. And there's thousands and thousands of them. I've done ice swimming and cold water swimming for a long time. I remember doing a talk at Kendall Mountain Festival, and it was this kind of extreme thing. It was about 8 years ago, and I was talking about my swimming in Siberia and the ice mile I've done, and people were just like blown away by it. But now most people's aunties or grands are swimming in through the winter. The whole thing has just shifted now, and that's unique about this country is just the amount of the ground level, the people who just want to get out there and have sociable swims. And it's really taken off the whole sport of open water swimming. It's massive now. It's changed so much.
And I think the ambassadors for the sport, like you mentioned there, Cassie, and obviously David Davis and Kerry-Anne Payne. And yeah. I think often the impacts that they had wasn't often realised until quite further down the line. So I remember I think Kerry-Anne was on season 7, I think, of the show. And she talked about the fact that she still gets people now come up to her and say, I was on the bank watching you in 2012, or I watched you on TV in 2012. And that's why I took up swimming or open water swimming. And I think the elite sport almost can be so narrow in its, compete, outcome, medal, and repeat, if you like. Whereas actually the ripple effects of some of these, and I'm sure it'll be the same going forwards with I know Tom Daly did quite a fascinating event recently, and a few others that are relatively high profile aquatic people, if you like, that get involved in these things that actually Joe Public can look at and go, I reckon I could have a go at that, or at least how would I get into that, and then jump on Google. And perhaps that's accelerated it a little bit because they can type in open water swimming on Google, and within 10 miles of wherever they are, it'll pop up with a little pin of where they can go, what the website is, who the contact is. And that must have accelerated it a little bit more in terms of access, because like you said, maybe 20 years ago, there was a few stalwarts out there, but actually it wasn't to the extent that it is now.
Yes. And, we had some great open water swimmers. Alan Bircher was leading the way for a long time. But at Beijing, that was when I was pitching the Great North Swim, and Kerry-Anne Payne came up before Beijing to help launch the event. And I remember talking to the directors of the Great Run Company, and I was talking about, it's going to be in the Olympics, it's going to be a 10K swim. And for some people watching 10 kilometers, they just thought, I remember one of the quotes was, it'd be like watching paint dry, watching a 10-kilometer swim of swimming. And, the event was electric. Kerry-Anne Payne, Cassie Patton, side by side, pretty much the whole race out in front. Then Larissa came across the finish. It was nail biting. David Davis going offline in the home straight, after, getting the silver medal. People watched that and they were just, astounded at how exciting, marathon swimming can be. And I think triathlon does a very good job with, the Brownie brothers. People know who they are. And triathlon does a very good job of promoting the sport through those guys. And I think, I don't think at the time we could have done more with them to sort of help promote competitive, long distance swimming, because they were just absolutely, in my book, absolute heroes. What they did was just incredible. And, I think it was a really good, again, that was all part of all these different things happening in open water swimming to make it grow. And I always think David Davies, Kerry-Anne and Cassie were just, really out there in what they did.
But I think it's the accessibility though, isn't it? Like you've mentioned already, I think that's, although their performance might seem otherworldly when you watch them swim 10,000 meters that quickly, but actually your nan goes, well, I can get in and do 100 meters, so why shouldn't I? And actually, I think now the visual aspect of it, in the sense of, I was down visiting my mum recently and she lives by the coast, and I went for a run in the morning, early doors, and there were already people in the sea. And once one person sees someone else, they go, oh, let's check that out. And 2 becomes 4, becomes 8. And it just spirals from there.
Yeah. And it's been the steady growth of the sport. But as you mentioned before, the lockdown just really got more people involved because people couldn't get into the swimming pools, and everyone was drawn to water, whether be it paddleboarding, swimming, whatever it was. People wanted to spend time in the water. The lockdown just brought something out in people's psyche, I think, about what they want from life, and people want to be around, be around the ocean or be around the lakes or the rivers. So, as I said, the biggest growth I've seen recently is in, middle-aged ladies who want. That's where most of the groups I see are women. A group of women going for a swim in the morning. Really important aspect of the sport, And when I organize events, big mass events, it's generally more women than men that take part in open water swimming. So for various reasons, it really attracts women into the sport.
That's really interesting. And I think like we said, the visibility of people participating in it, I think only amplifies that, in the sense of somebody who might feel like they would struggle to try something that perhaps is very far out of their comfort zone, might see someone get out on the beach or in the lake or the river and go, oh, they look like me. So how did you get into it? Oh, I joined this group, or we come down here. And I was watching one of the Cornwall groups that talks about, well, I say sporadic, they're all over the place now, but the groups of women that are coming in on the morning sessions there. And actually, it's absolutely incredible when you're down there and I'm standing there looking, going, oh, the surf looks a bit ropey today. And then you're looking in the shoreline and there's people getting out of the water in swimsuits. And I'm thinking, it's April, this is a bit fresh.
Yeah. And the other aspect as well on that is the mental well-being side. So that's something which people have been aware of. I think, again, through articles in the press and, Wim Hof and all these different things going on. And people people now understand that, swimming outdoors can be good for you. You can feel good from it. It's not just a physical thing, it's also a mental thing. And people have always sort of been aware that sport makes you feel a bit better. If you go for a run, you always feel better doing it. But something about being immersed in nature, the cold water shock that you can get, where it boosts your immune system a bit and you feel really good. You get that buzz when you come out. It's a social thing. It's something a bit different as well. All those things, I think, have really got through to people. And that's another reason why, all these different threads have all come together. And I think the mental well-being side certainly has had a big impact on people wanting to sort of get involved in the sport.
Let's talk a little bit about, I guess, getting in the first place then. And I don't mean literally getting in the water, but for people watching, and I know we have a really diverse group of listeners, actually some people are listening thinking, well, yeah, that sounds great, and I know where the local swimming pool is, but beyond that, where would I even start? And what's your kind of top advice to people that are, let's say, they can swim, they're safe, but they have never tried open water swimming before?
So I think you mentioned it before, in that the best bit of advice I can give is to find other swimmers. Find one of these groups around. If you live near water, odds are nowadays you'll see people going in. If you can find people who already do it, they can often give you the best safety advice. Where's a good place to swim? If it's at the sea, they might explain about tides and currents and, when you should and shouldn't swim. On the rivers, if it's too high or if there's pollution around. So your local swimmer will probably know about that. So you can also go on to Facebook. There's so many groups. If you just typed, as you say, if you just Google, your area and open water swimming, chances are something will come up. I know through lockdown, I think people got a bit scared with the numbers of people wanting to do it. So there's a lot of clubs and groups kind of closed off a little bit, but I think they're kind of opening back up again. So if you want to sort of find something, I'm sure people are really helpful. So find your local groups. And then the Outdoor Swimming Society, they've got lots of groups on their websites and their Facebook groups. Often just put a post on there. I'm from here. Anybody know where I can swim around me? And that's how you find people, so there's lots of places to go to now for that sort of advice. But yeah, local knowledge is always a good thing.
Most certainly. And I think then we start looking, I guess, taking it forward. So you've been in for the first time, you found that group and you're looking to develop it. And that's, I came across some of the stuff that you've been putting out there with your YouTube channel and stuff like that. And again, that's supercharged access when we talk now compared to 20 years ago. You know, some of the information, don't know about you, but when the swimming magazines used to come through, there might be a top tips page that'd have 3 or 4 paragraphs, but there certainly wouldn't, well, there might be the odd photo, but you wouldn't have access to the kind of video footage and, you know, the pool behind you and all those sorts of things. And I think that's, again, given tools to people that perhaps wouldn't have previously had access to them. And that must have been quite a creative shift for you, because it's not like you've come into the sport 3 years ago and that's just the norm. Why wouldn't you put stuff on YouTube? You've lived that journey from pre-internet through to actually putting content out on YouTube. So what's that been like for you?
Well, it was interesting for me because that became part of my job for quite a while. When I was with FINA, FINA took me on because of my work with the Olympics and also because of my work setting up mass participation swim events. And they were like, oh, this guy knows stuff about open water swimming. We don't quite have that knowledge. So they asked me to start coming along to some of their, you know, the 10K World Cup events. And so I was kind of on the circuit going from event to event. And at first it was just to try and get mass participation events alongside the elite races. But while I was there, I was doing videos while I was there because I thought, God, this is amazing. And, you know, there might be some sort of TV company there, but there wasn't, people just didn't hear about these amazing races that were happening so much. So I started doing videos on the finish line, and then I would, you know, I would interview Thomas Lertz as he got out of the water, and Thomas would sort of, you know, tell me about the race. And then I started posting that on my Facebook at first. And then I set up a YouTube channel and I started posting some of those highlight videos on my YouTube channel. And that was before FINA were doing any social media stuff like that, you know, so it's quite funny to think back. It wasn't that long ago, but, you know, I remember the officials would like say, who's this guy with a, you know, with a camera videoing at the finish? Because it was quite annoying for them, you know, they're like, who does he think he is? And then all of a sudden FINA were like, hey, can you do some of that for us? So, you know, so at the end of the race, I'd be videoing, I'd have a GoPro on the finish, I'd have my camera, I would catch the elites as it came out, I would video 1, 2, 3, have my laptop, I would do a quick video, and then I'd throw that onto FINA Facebook. Because it used to take 2 days for them to get the official footage back from the provider, and before they get anything on their channel at all. So I was like just throwing stuff out, you know, minutes after the race. And so that was just fascinating to see how, you know, something that I was doing for myself, and then FINA sort of asking me to do it. And then I'd have to come a little bit more polished and get things a little bit more sort of higher quality. And then the elites would appreciate what I was doing, because they realized that actually, if they talked to me after the race, that was getting some coverage and people would hear about the race, you know, and these are guys who are racing these incredible 10K events. And so for me, it was a real honor to sort of get their message across and get the race across. So that was fun, developing that side of things. And my YouTube channel, Colin Hill Swims, I would, you know, I would start doing just general advice videos. So winter swimming, I set up my first winter swimming race in 2013. And, you know, so I thought I better put a bit of advice about swimming in cold water, because again, that's changed so much from now, you know. So back then the first race, a lot of people from Cumbria were saying to me, you know, is it safe? Can you do it? Is it, you know, what should you do? How do you do it? And they thought it was just nuts that I was having a race in the middle of winter with no wetsuits. But the first race I had there, I had people flying in from around the world to take part. And all the locals were like, wow, this is incredible. And so the videos from that start getting more and more views. So yeah, I think it's been a really important part. And I think that's helped the growth of people like myself, putting top tips about winter swimming, what you should and shouldn't do. And people can look at that and think, oh, wow, you know, so that's how you go about it. So yeah, really important part and really exciting again to be involved with that. So yeah, so I've had lots of comments on my videos, and yeah, I know people watching from all over the world and, you know, replied and sort of said how useful they found them.
That's fantastic. And we will make sure we include that channel in the link to this video.
Hey.
I want to ask, I guess, about unusual opportunities, because, and granted, the swimming world isn't a linear line unless you're in the actual pool. But when you started out on this journey, could you have possibly imagined it was going to follow the route that you've ended up taking?
No, you got to think back. When in 2008, when I pitched the idea of the Great North Swim, there was triathlons, obviously, but there was no mass participation swims. When I pitched the idea, people just thought it wasn't going to work. We wouldn't get anybody showing up for it. I believe, because of my experience in New Zealand, I believe that if it was fun and easily accessible, we would get some people. And I insisted that we didn't aim our advertising at club swimmers or triathletes. I wanted us to advertise to the general public in the swimming pools. That's where I wanted to focus it, because that's who I thought would be the ones would get to come along. I thought the triathletes and competitive swimmers would come along anyway if they wanted to. But really, the first race, we got 2,200 in the first race. And, you know, as soon as that happened, I was really enthusiastic and I wanted to do more and grow things. And so we set up a series there. We ended up with 5 different big, great swims, you know, London and Ipswich and different places. But still, I was always championing. It's funny, you spend so long championing things and telling people how great something is. It's kind of a shock when you step back and think, wow, actually, now it is big. You know, it actually has grown. Kate Roos just brought out a new book, the Outdoor Swimming Handbook, I think it's called. And we were just chatting about when we first met back in 2007, and we were talking about what we're doing and, you know, how good swimming is and how, you know, it should be more popular than what it is. And now I think we're at the other end almost, where it is popular now. People do know what it is. People do understand, you know, about all the different aspects of it. So yeah, it's been an amazing journey, but I was very much just focused on the moments and just what was ahead. And, you know, being asked to work on the Olympics was incredible. So leaving my job at Great Run to go and work on the Olympics was a big step. And then when I was at the Olympics, that's when I went on my first sort of international winter swimming event. And I was across in Latvia. I did a sort of a winter swimming world championships. And then that took me down that route. So I did, you know, being sort of involved in that. I'm now in the board of the International Winter Swimming Association, working on our next World Championships, which will be in Lake Bled. So it's just amazing how these things progress. And one of the reasons was early on, it's just such a close friendships that you create. You mentioned it before, but when I went to Latvia for that first winter swim race, I'm still really good friends with a lot of people I sort of swam with out there. You know, and I've been to Siberia, the Arctic, Finland several times. And, you know, you create such close bonds through open water swimming. And if you become a channel swimmer, I swam the English Channel back in 2010, I think. Again, you get to know people and you're part of that family of channel swimmers. And I was really honored to be the International Marathon Swimming and the International Swimming Hall of Fame. They've both they inducted me for my, you know, for what I've done in developing the sport. So it's amazing. I can't believe what's happened over all these years. And, you know, yeah, really, really pleased to be involved in it all.
I want to ask, I guess, a slight tangent here. When you got a call about dealing with a load of people that wanted to go and swim who were training for a boxing competition.
Right,
because
yes.
I saw that flash up a little while ago, and
Yeah.
that then ended up watching the series, and that was really cool. But what was that process like, going really to kind of what happened?
I've been involved in a bit of TV work over the years with open water swimming, partly because for a while I was one of the few open water swimmers around who had a bit of a profile. So, you know, I did my first sort of swimming gig with Radzi from Blue Peter. And he was doing a winter swimming challenge, and I trained him to swim across Lake Windermere. And then I've been asked to do a few things after that. So Harry Hill, I was on that because I was on River Cottage with Hugh Fernie-Whittenstill, and I did a swim thing with them. And then Sport Relief, I work with Joe Wiley. So trained Joe up for a winter swimming challenge she did. And then I got asked to do a swim with Idris Elba. And you know, that was kind of surreal, really. I mean, Idris is amazing. He had a TV show called Idris's Fight School, and that was about a group of kids. And Idris is really passionate about using sport to get people on the straight and narrow through sort of hard work and dedication. And he used to be a boxer when he was young. And this TV show is about getting people who've had problems in their lives through drugs or crime, and getting them on the straight and narrow through trying to train up to become boxers. And so one of the weeks he wanted to take them into the open water. And so they asked me to come along and sort of set up a course and try and set the goals and what we're trying to achieve from it. And really for open water swimming, for me, it was about, you know, you have to just put your head down, and you're not going to get to the end unless you put in the work. It doesn't matter how much drama or playing up for the camera that you do. You've got to keep swimming. So Idris was amazing, and so he was really passionate about it. And I was down at Eton Dorney for the filming, and he's a pretty good swimmer. Idris is he's a big fit guy, so his swimming was great, and the kids got a lot out of it. When they achieved their goals, some of them couldn't swim. We had life jackets on, buoyancy aids on a few of them, and for them to achieve this swim was a big thing, to overcome their fears. And so that was what Idris wanted out of it, and he was really happy with the results. So yeah, really fun to be involved with that one.
Well, the next thing I want to ask, I guess, and the reason I asked about that was because that power of sport, if you like, of changing people's lives, I think you can pick 1,001 stories from that open water and cold water swimming community that will talk about how, both from a physical and a mental health point of view, the sport has massively benefited them. And I know we've touched on the mental health side of things already, but that is a story that I think is so much, I guess, more relatable, because 99.9% of us aren't going to go to an Olympic Games. But if we think about how many people have physical and mental health struggles in their life at some point, that's a pretty big group of us.
Yes, and also it's a very achievable thing. So some people will, spend the month of December just going for a dip every day in cold water. I'm not talking about a swim, just going for a dip. Some people it's just in the shower. Some people, they meet up with friends every morning and they'll go for a dip. And when I worked on the Olympics, I was based obviously around the Serpentine. And that's where I met the Serpentine Swimming Club group. And they're a wonderful, eccentric bunch. They've swum. The swimming club's been going for over 200 years in the Serpentine. They swim every day, year round, most of them without wetsuits. And that's where I got a sense of this camaraderie that you get, looking out for each other, making sure people don't stay in the water too long. When people come out, looking after them, make sure they're getting changed nice and quickly, making sure there's a nice warm drink ready for them. And the Serpentine Swimming Club personified that amazingly. And I know there's Tootingbeck Lido, there's Brockwell, there's the ponds, and the Brighton Pier. There's been these groups going for a long time, and and they've been, when I saw how they work together, I just thought it was incredible. And what I find really heartwarming now is that has been replicated around the country. When I go, and when I'm in the lake in the morning, I'll see a group of people going in, and they weren't there a couple of years ago, and now they're going in every day. They're going in through the winter. So that's something which is, which was just in a few places, and now it's happening all over the country. And I think it's something that should be, really embraced. I mean, I always say this, you need to keep your common sense. You need to not overdo it, not stay in the cold water too long. It's not about the Instagram photographs, but it's about looking after yourself. But people can do that. It's a very achievable thing for anybody to go and have a cold water dip in the morning. And then from that, people suddenly, they decide to swim a bit longer. They maybe want to go and do a cold water swimming event, but you don't have to. You can just by going in for that swim 30 seconds, a minute, you feel amazing. It gives you a real good boost for the day. So yeah, it's a really important part of, open water swimming now. It just encompasses so much, and that's a really important part.
How would you describe as best as possible how open water swimming as an activity and a sport has changed your life?
Well, for me, it's provided a career. It's given me focus. I've always enjoyed, being active. I've always enjoyed competing, and I sort of bridge a few gaps in that I love the competitive side, but I love nothing more than taking my children out for a swim in the lake, and just, we might go for a little walk up to a little stream or a waterfall or a tarn. And so it's really, it's every day I'm in the water, every day I'm in the lake, every day I'm coaching somebody, and I still enjoy being involved in competitive side myself. So it's in my DNA now. It's who I am, really. So from just being a pool competitive swimmer, enjoying open water swimming, when I was overseas, enjoying swimming length of lakes when I came back to this country, to becoming a full-time job and pastime. Yeah. And that's why I live in the Lake District. And and it's what I do. So I'm very blessed that I've managed to, over the years, create things to give me this lifestyle.
There's a couple more things I want to ask. The first one is from I guess a business and a career point of view, like you touched upon there. There's a lot of people who perhaps look at the traditional career pathways and go, that's not necessarily for me. And perhaps historically, coaching and working in, or certainly I can speak from my own experience, the swimming world would almost be looked down on. You know, the comment of when are you going to get a proper job and that sort of thing coming up. And I think there's through mediums like this now, there's a lot more access to people hearing these inspirational stories of people who have forged careers. So what would you say to people who are starting that journey right now of finding their place in the world, and whether that's in open water or any other of the outdoor activities you've been involved in?
Well, it's about, it's about that dedication and just being, I don't know, I'm obsessed, I guess, so I was obsessed with swimming. I threw myself into it with my channel training and everything else, and I'm just really passionate. And, I just try and get that passion across. So be it in the events that I organized, so the chill swim events, I hope that people who came to them, they could see my love for the sport coming through. I wasn't just doing it for a job. I was doing it because I was passionate about it, and I wanted to give other people that same experience. And, and for me, a normal day now would be, I'll have 9 o'clock. I might have some introduction swim where I'm taking people swimming for the first time in the lake. I might have some more experienced swimmers swimming across the lake. I'll guide them with my boats. I'll have some endless pool sessions. I've got a stargazing swims in the evening. And everything I do, every single session, I'm trying to get my passion and my enthusiasm across, and that's what it's about, really. It's not an easy job. Organizing events was very stressful. When you've got thousands of people coming along to an event in the Lake District and the weather isn't great, I used to lose sleep over it. It was quite a stressful thing. And there's some days when you're going out in the lake and it's cold and wet, and you've got to be the one who's saying, come on, let's go, it's gonna be great. So you've got to really want to do it, whatever that is, whatever the sport is or whatever you're interested in. I think it's just sort of following your passion and, being enthusiastic with it. So, yeah, it's hard to quantify because it's just something that I've always done. But yeah, I think it's, again, I think passion, enthusiasm. I think that's what got me through.
Well, that passion and enthusiasm certainly shines through. And I think the last thing I want to ask, I guess, to pull it all together, reflecting back on it all now, what's kind of the one most, I guess, succinct piece of wisdom that you can share from having been on that journey now and looking back at all these incredible things you've experienced and places that you've been? What's been the one bit of either advice or mantras or something that stays with you?
Gosh, that's a good one. I think from a career point of view, it was, well, I guess it's, Steve Jobs. He said something along the lines of, there's no point in having asking people advice because people don't know what they want until you invent it. And I think I've been a bit like that at times where people didn't want to have a cold water swimming race in the Lake District, but I felt that it would work. And if I built it, it would happen and people would want to come along. Same with the first Great North Swim. People didn't know they wanted it, but in my heart, I thought it would work. So it's not a case of just copying what other people do. It's a case of, if you think that something will work, even if it's not around, you've got to go for it. There's no point asking other people what they think because people don't know it's going to be a success until it happens. Tow floats. The word tow float I invented. People didn't know, that's an orange things that you swim with and they bob behind you. I sort of developed those and built up the company. And, before I was doing those, people didn't use them. They didn't know they needed to. And now you see tow floats all over the place. So it's about having that self-belief, I think. Yeah, and do what you want. And from my own sporting side, it's about, doing things that you want to do and enjoying it. So I've done my hard work now. I've done my cold swims where I've swam through the night, Windermere two-way. It's been sort of 14, 15 degrees and it's been pretty miserable. And now I think I tend to do swims that I want to do and want to enjoy. So I think, when you're younger and you're keen, you've got to do all those really tough things. And then as you get older, you just start doing the things you really want to enjoy doing.
That's a really nice message to pull it all together. And as I said earlier, we will include the links to everything you're up to, your YouTube channel and everything else in the show notes, because I think there'll be a lot of people who hopefully we've started a little itch for them that at some point they'll follow up and scratch. But for now, Colin, thank you so much. It's been really, really interesting. And being a swimming person kind of through and through, it's been really enjoyable to explore it all.
Well, thank you very much for having me again, and great podcasts. Thanks a lot.
A huge thank you to Colin and all our guests for their time and wonderful stories as we close out season 10. We've included the links to everything that Colin is up to, his YouTube, Ullswater swim place and more in the show notes. You can also follow us on all our socials as well as other pages, and again these are linked in the show notes. We're taking a break now over the summer as we are off on the road for a while. Myself and one of our future guests are heading off to the world-renowned Do Lectures in Wales in early July. I'm fortunate enough to be part of the athlete services team for the swimming at the Commonwealth Games this summer, and then I'll be heading off around the UK on tour with triple Olympic champion Adam Peaty in late August. Stay tuned as we've got lots more content coming out, picking out some of the best bits from our 80 shows so far. I'm also teaming up with episode 44 guest Richard Cheetham, MBE, to take some of our lessons from the world of performance sport into business to help business leaders work towards their goals. You can find out more about that very soon, and I'll do a shout out on the podcast socials, so make sure you are following us. Finally, a huge thank you to you, the listeners. Our community continues to grow every week, and we're now listened to in 70 countries around the world. Many of you reach out to us every week on social media, and it's a real privilege to share some time with you, whether that's on YouTube or through our audio platforms. So again, a big thank you, and we will be back very soon with a new season of the Rogue Monkey podcast.